Welcome to episode 32 of the Sports Geek podcast. On today's episode, I chat with Kenny Lauer from the Golden State Warriors on engaging fans in stadium, using Google Hangouts, and how to design a stadium for the future. Then we jump across the pond to London to chat to Fiona Green on CRM, fan engagement, and understanding data.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who's reading your tweets right now, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. That's right, send in your tweets either to myself, Sean Callanan, at Sean Callanan, or to Sports Geek, at Sports Geek. And one thing you will see is a lot of tweets for SB Night. That's the hashtag for our sports business networking night that we're having on Tuesday the 21st of January. And as everyone is starting to come back to work, I expect more people to be signing up for that. So go to sportsgeekhq.com/SB Night. It'll be at Honey Bar, who always provide a great venue for our events. And a big thank you to James Spinks from Interplay Media for sponsoring the event, and it allows us to offer everybody who attends a free drink upon arrival, which should help get the networking started. So, big show today. I've got two really good interviews, so I want to really get cracking. We go around the world like we did in the last episode where we went to Finland and Kansas City. Today we go to San Francisco and to London. My first interview is with Kenny Lauer, the VP of Digital and Marketing at the Warriors. And then we cross over to London to catch up with Fiona Green from Winners, who has vast experience in the sports CRM space. But first, here's my chat with Kenny Lauer from the Golden State Warriors. I'm very pleased to welcome Kenny Lauer, the Vice President of Digital and Marketing at the Golden State Warriors, to the Sports Geek podcast. Welcome, Kenny.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Excited to have an opportunity to chat with you, Sean.
So you started in the role in September 2013, if LinkedIn has it correct. Can you tell me a little bit about your role and your background from a digital and a marketing point of view?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is my background is really as a customer strategist to really understand how to use the technologies to engage customers and in this case fans. And so a lot of my background was more traditional in that, more in the consulting role. I worked with a company called Peppers & Rogers Group that coined the term one-to-one marketing. Worked with KPMG, traditional consulting. Started my career at Apple as an evangelist. So I've been involved with technology and the use of technology to engage customers or engage fans for most of my career. Most recently, before joining the Warriors, I ran a global digital practice for one of the largest in the world, experience marketing agencies. And my primary role was the threading and integration of digital experiences into live or physical experiences. So when I had the opportunity to, come to the Warriors with an amazing ownership that believes in storytelling and believes in entrepreneurialism, with raving fans and the ability to test in that arena and then build out a new arena in San Francisco, was just something I couldn't pass up.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of why it draws so many people into sports. You've got those fans. I like to call them the sports fans on a digital point of view. I steal Seth Godin's line, positive deviance, because I think that's a really great way of describing sports fans. And then the other side of it is sports is a great storytelling just platform overall, because there's so much content coming at you all the time. You've got so many options ahead of you. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something you did in the preseason. I was lucky enough to be involved in Warriors Live. So you did a live Google Hangout from a Golden State Warriors practice in the preseason. You had Mark Jackson mic'd up, and you had your TV crew there, and you had a few people also joining the Hangout, and I joined all the way from Melbourne. Do you want to give us a bit of background on that activation and also the response you had from your fans?
Yeah, absolutely. This was an opportunity for us to try an experiment that hadn't been done yet, to really blend the physical world and the virtual world and use some technology to really, with all due respect, allow more visibility, more access for our fans to see what happens at a typical practice. And we teamed up with Google to do this, and as you know, we use Google Hangout, which for those who don't know is really
it's a live stream. It's effectively Google Plus's live streaming product.
That's right.
I guess the jury's still out on Google Plus as a complete platform, but if you're looking at their jewel and their crown, it is Google Hangouts. For by and large, it works. Like you point a camera at multiple people and they can have a conversation. But I think the way that you guys did it for Warriors Live was really good, because it was the engaging content that was happening on the court, where you could choose the vision and say, I want to watch the court, but you also had the banter happening underneath.
That's exactly right. We specifically picked individuals that we knew would comment and would be engaging while in parallel streaming what was happening on the court, and it was an incredible success. Took a lot of planning. We really needed Google's help to do it, but the overall feedback from the fans, which was what was most important to us, was overwhelmingly positive. Now, there are things we learned and things that we could do better. We had special privileges from both our RSN and from NBA to do an open practice like this, but we would do it again in a second because of the feedback that we got.
And do you think, one of the advantages of being in Golden State is being so close to Silicon Valley. Being so close to all the tech companies and the hottest things happening in tech, does that have its advantages for the Warriors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are 15 to 20 miles from the three largest social media companies in the world, and we are the basketball team in the Bay Area. So that presents unique opportunities for us. And in fact, we are in talks right now and trying things with Facebook, with Google, with Instagram, and we also have the ability to access such an amazing wealth of entrepreneurial efforts that are happening in San Francisco and in the Valley. It really presents a unique opportunity for us to truly be innovative in terms of how we change, evolve, and and truly excel in the fan experience. And a lot of it is because we have ownership that's open to that and giving us a runway to do that. We've got people on board that know what to do with that information, and we're, as you said, clearly situated geographically in a desirable place to be able to actually do that. So it's really a perfect storm.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was lucky enough to go to a Warriors game back in March, and Kevin Akers, who sets up all the tech and makes sure that the fans can actually connect and share their experience at Oracle Arena. He's done a great job at setting up the Wi-Fi there, and you've really done a really good job of really trying to integrate the social and the digital experience at the games. You really do want people to check in. I tell all my clients about the Warriors check-in desk and how effective that's
crazy. Yeah.
To just from a giveaways point of view, but it really, I like promoting that FOMO, the fear of missing out. Fans do want to brag that they're at a Warriors game, and if they can do that with an Instagram picture of a foam finger, all the better. How do you you're taking your fan experience sort of experience, if you want to double that up, into Oracle Arena. What are you looking to do in Oracle Arena, and then how can you explode that and make that even better in the new arena? Yeah,
so we are already doing quite a bit in the arena. We are really looking at, I think, as I mentioned before, the arena, the Oracle Arena, as a petri dish to be able to really try out new technologies. And we have the kinds of fans, which I love, raving, passionate fans, but also those that want to be part of these experiments. They want to try certain things to see how they work. Remember, they live and work in the Bay Area as well. So we are already, obviously we're doing a lot with Twitter, we're doing a lot with Instagram, obviously the Facebook check-in, where we really can, tap into the tribal nature and the feeling of belonging that fans have. But we're also looking at extending things using different ways to engage people with our app. Like we're using we're in the process of testing out the use of inaudible tones coming out of our speakers to drive certain things on the app.
Wow.
We're looking, it's really unbelievable because, and to your point, Kevin Akers is a master in helping us enable what we need to do within the arena with Wi-Fi. But this particular instantiation of an experience it doesn't require Wi-Fi because we're using little sound chunks that will come out of our speaker system, which we have plenty of speakers, to drive different sorts of experiences. We are also, and this came through a unique opportunity through one of our owners and an entrepreneurial effort, creating a tool that allows for multiple video feeds, multiple content, both live and pre-programmed, to come to your mobile device and allow you to be able to click on different ways, different cameras to see within the arena,
and so
different content mechanisms.
Will that be geo fence? So only fans who are at the venue to sort of again amp up that live experience. So if you want to be at the game, you'll obviously it's an amazing experience. Everyone's screaming for almost the whole 48 minutes at a Warriors game. It's almost college-like atmosphere. But if you want to pull up vision down in the tunnels or on the practice courts or from the bench, you'll only be able to get that from the stadium using the geofencing technology of the app.
Yep, that's exactly right. Absolutely doing that. We are also doing a test, in fact, in the next week with Google Glass. It's not really of an interest to me to use Google Glass as a PR stunt or to get press. It's more about how can we actually improve the fan experience. So our app, which is designed by Yin's Cam, we're the first NBA team to actually have a Google Glass app created, and we are testing it out in some specific areas in our arena where they will actually get an augmented experience while they are wearing the glass, as a way to really test to see, how can we offer more to our fans? We are also, and again, even within the arena, we're looking at how to use contextual awareness. So I know, Sean, you've probably heard of the use of beacons and sensors. All of this is going to be incredibly relevant when we move over to the new arena. We're going to create, this new arena is going to be a living, breathing arena. It's going to have ubiquitous computing, and it's going to be very relevant to everyone that is actually coming to a game or an event, or even if you're just coming to experience it and there's nothing going on in the arena.
Well,
so again, we're testing.
That's the exciting thing for tech geeks like yourself and Kevin Cote, who's activating the digital. It's like, well, you're now planning a stadium for technology that people don't yet have or it's not yet adopted. So things like wearables and context computing, which is the trend, and I've already spoken about Robert Scoble's latest book on the age of context. That is where everyone's going to be heading. So whether it's the current version that we see, Google Glass, and we see I think they've termed glass holes, or people are walking around with Google Glass, but we won't be talking about that. We won't be talking about that version of Google Glass. It'll be far more integrated. And it won't be, they won't be abnormal. They'll be the norm, whether it's that or whether it's the technology in our phones that are able to enable us. Even just yesterday, I saw it. There's now an Android operating system that has that contextual awareness. And so when you're in the gym, the whole phone changes and only just shows your gym apps, and when you're in the super, it's called Aviate, and then when you're traveling, it shows you Google Maps and it shows you all the different traveling apps. So even our phones are getting that contextual smartness about them. So moving into a stadium where you're trying to plan for, we've had 5 years of smartphones doubling the amount of data down every 18 months. That's only going to be that's a big issue that you've got to face in designing this new stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was one of the early reviewers of Robert and Shell's book, and I think they hit on a lot of things that are right on. To me, the most important word is relevancy. So we can get caught up in a whole bunch of technology, and believe me, I'm the first to be an early adopter. I was one of the first to have an Apple Newton, Yep. But for me, it really is about relevancy, which then moves to, okay, how do we drive certain behavior, and then how does that behavior drive value? And this toolbox of things that we can pull, like when we start to think about what we want to do, we look at what is the behavior we want to drive, and then we dive into our toolbox and say, oh, we can use Twitter, we can use some sensors, we can use an inaudible tone, or we can use second screen. Remember, we're not only just focusing on the fans that are in arena. We are looking at and currently working with Comcast right now on how to deepen engagement through second screen, through those fans that are experiencing our game remotely and watching TV.
And that is a dual focus, both of the team, but also your digital team. Like, you really want to be promoting the live event and how great it is at the live event. But yeah, you've still got the majority of people who are following a lot of things social. I guess even 18 months ago, a lot of our social content that was going out was for the person on the couch, because the person in the stadium couldn't get that content. Now we're serving two audiences, because the person in the stadium, if they choose, can get that content. But I tend to agree to a certain degree with Mark Cuban's remarks of, if you're at a game, you should be entertained by the game. So there's a mix there where you want the fans to be taking their Instagram shot, or pulling out Vine when the slam dunk on the trampolines come out. But when they're in the game, Warriors games are like that. They're very much focused on the game. So it's a bit of getting a mix of engaging that digital fan at the stadium, but then also making sure that the fan on the couch or in the sports bar is getting as much information as they can get possible.
Well, and that's something, Sean, when we get together, we can debate back and forth around Mark's comments. I found those very interesting.
What's your stance?
Well, I can see where Mark is coming from, and to tell you the truth, that is not unlike some of the comments in the corporate spaces. I want people looking at the person on stage, and not engaging with whatever they're holding on their lap. I want to lean back, maybe not a lean-in experience. And for me, my focus is that what I find is when you allow the fan to choose the experience that is going to deliver the best value to them, is going to make them, allow them to align themselves with what kind of the customer profile, whether maybe they're into stats, maybe they're into video replays, and allow them to slot themselves into that. If you offer that opportunity, what you find is that the overall experience when they walk out is, I had a great time, which is, to me, what my goal is. I want them to be in that arena, and this goes back to Mahali's book on flow, which you're probably aware of, which is, to create an optimum experience where, in a sense, the rest of the world falls away. That's what I want to create when these fans are watching and immersed in our game. And if that means that, and many of them are already looking down, what I would like them to be doing is looking down and deepening engagement in something that is happening right in front of them than checking email or doing something else. Now, I do understand the cadence of basketball, for example, versus baseball,
Yep.
where you have a lot more downtime, requires a whole different treatment on how you do that, which is one of the challenges that we always have as a team. We have very small amounts of time to actually engage. So you do have to take that seriously, and you have to make sure that you own that on behalf of the fan. But I believe it's not one or the other.
Yeah,
I believe that there's...
I think the key point there, and I think that's probably an extension of Mark Cuban's one, is it's what the fan wants. It's it's the experience that they want, and you need to be able to deliver that. So I think I understand Mark's point, because as a sports fan, when I'm not just sports geek and I'm a sports fan, I like to consume the game and have that sort of envelop me, and like you just said, have the rest of the world fall away, because I'm so in on the live experience, whether the live experience is at a football game or a basketball game or a music concert. Whereas other people, and you see it every time, who are at a concert or a game, their live experience is both on their phone and through their phone. The amount of times they're taking shots or Snapchatting or tweeting or texting with someone either on the other side of the stadium or at home, that's how their experience is. So I think it is an extension of that and building it for all these different types of fans that you have in your arena.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be something that is going to continue to evolve. I mean, we're getting more research. We've already got a tremendous amount of research that says that most multi-screen behavior is involved in unrelated activities. But now we're even getting more where we're overlaying that, there was just a new study that came out that said 1 in 4 TV viewers use second screen to simultaneously watch more video.
Yep.
So, how do you start to really look at these trends, and you get the what I call the quiet signals or the early signals, so that you can evolve? And keep in mind, for us, we have a dual purpose. We absolutely want to maximize the experience in the Oracle arena. In addition to that, we are also looking at the trends and trying to understand what is the fan experience going to be like when we light this up in 2017. And when we light it up in 2017 in San Francisco, how do we make sure that it's not already out of date, that it's put in, that it's scalable, and it enables the fans to really experience things over the next decade or so. So,
it sounds like
just listen to what we're talking about. It's incredible.
Exactly. It sounds like that might be a panel discussion at Seat in Miami. I'm sure it'll fire a few people up.
Count me in.
One question I did want to ask you. You recently had a trip to China. You've opened up some accounts on Weibo. Do you want to give us a little bit of background of how that trip went and how your efforts are going, sort of pushing into to things like using things like Weibo and reaching that Chinese market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the trip was phenomenal for us. It was, it happened relatively quickly after I joined, and I only fully appreciated it as I experienced, remotely what was going on over there. Not only was there a tremendous amount of excitement, but Kevin Cote, who leads our digital effort, did a phenomenal job at creating the right online presence to be able to support that trip. We localized and launched an entire site in Chinese. We are one of just a few teams to have a Weibo account, and we have continued to develop that relationship with everyone who is following us on Weibo. In fact, as part of an all-star campaign, we did a Weibo chat with Curry, and it was phenomenal. So I think that what this shows is when you find opportunities where you have a fan base, the value of communicating in their language and understanding their customs and understanding what resonates with them, not unlike, as you create profiles for your different customers, say in the U.S.,
Yep. It's
just incredibly, incredibly powerful. So we have a huge base, and we're definitely leveraging that for the All-Star vote. We just we just got the latest numbers, and Curry's number 2. So we believe that has that has a significant amount to do with it as well.
Well, terrific, and you obviously will be getting lots of votes from Australia now that Andrew Bogut is on the court there. I do remember the guys from the Bucks said they were getting unusually amounts of traffic from Australia when Andrew Bogut was with the Bucks, but now he's with a West Coast and a time-friendly team. There are definitely a fair few Aussies watching the Warriors. One, because it's an exciting team, and then the Andrew Bogut Stephen Curry alley-oop off the backboard was on the news the other night. So
great.
Anytime the Warriors are on a bit of a tear, you're always going to get a bit of press in Australia. Well, Kenny, I know you've got to head off to another meeting, so thank you very much for joining me. I'm looking forward to catching up with you in Miami for the C conference. We can have a chat a little bit further and maybe discuss the multi-screen environment and Mark Cuban's comments on a panel or two. So I look forward to catching up then.
Thank you, Sean. I look forward to it as well. I appreciate the time.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Kenny for joining me on the podcast. Really good insight, especially on his experience as a customer strategist and what he's bringing to the sports space and really focusing on the fan engagement. And yeah, I'm really super interested to see what the new stadium's going to be, especially with all the contextual components of it, and the Google Glass app and all those kind of things that will develop. I'm sure it actually will probably be a discussion point. I'm very pleased to have Kenny join the digital steering committee for SEAT, and be good to catch up with him in Miami. My next guest is Fiona Green from the UK, and thanks to Baz for suggesting Fiona. I've been following Fiona for a few years on Twitter. So here is our chat about the world of sports and CRM.
And very pleased to have on Sports Geek Podcast this week, all the way from the UK, and I promise not to mention the cricket and the Ashes, but I've already done it in the intro. Fiona Green from Winners, and they are a CRM and business intelligence consultancy out of the UK. Fiona, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. And yes, you did promise me you weren't going to talk about the cricket, but let's leave it at that and move on.
Yeah, I really couldn't. I really couldn't after the 5-0 whitewash, but I will stop. I will stop there. So,
Thank you.
For people who don't know Fiona, you're Fiona Green 66 on Twitter, and you're from Winners, which is at Winners CRM. Do you want to give us a bit of background of your background in the sports business industry?
Yeah, sure. So I've been involved in the sports marketing industry, for a long time, over 26 years actually, and I've spent the majority of my time representing rights holders with their intellectual property, so primarily sponsorship, media and licensing. And I think it was about 3 years ago now that I stepped into the world of CRM, and I just think this is such a right time for sports organisations to be embracing CRM to its fullest. We're probably a bit behind, actually, certainly when you think about what's going on in America. And I think it's down to the fact that 10, 15 years ago, we'd open our gates and people would come. And, of course, we don't have that luxury anymore. So, yeah, taking what I've learned over the 20-odd years working with rights holders and now applying the principles of CRM that businesses like Amazon have been doing for many, many years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think sports has really dived into the CRM space. I've definitely seen that with my involvement with the guys at SEAT, guys like Russell Scabetti at the Jets and the stuff that they're doing, and the guys that I'm meeting in the CRM track of SEAT. It's understanding the fan and getting that 360-degree view of the fan is something that sports is now getting a hold of, that things like retail, the hotel and the hospitality industry, the travel industry, they've sort of been all over that, for 15 years or so. And now sports has realised, well, we've got these people that are turning up to stadiums. There's so much information we can get about them. What can we now do with them?
And it's staggering that, as you just mentioned, the financial services industry, the telco industry, the travel industry, they've been using CRM for years, but they're also sports' biggest partners, sports' biggest sponsors. And at the moment, we're just doing a piece on the role of CRM in sponsorship. And it's staggering that none of our sponsors, people like Visa and MasterCard, who have grown out of CRM, have turned to any of their sports properties and said, what are you doing about CRM? But the minute the sports rights holders go to their sponsors and say, we are now embracing CRM, the sponsors get excited because they know that this is the way to go, understanding their customers, understanding the fan base, identifying them and being able to relate with them in a way that's meaningful and relevant for them.
Yeah, and I think too, rights holders are now getting a better handle on the value of the data that they do have. And they're not just selling signage rights. They're not just selling, logo spots on stadiums or jerseys. The access to the data and better understanding of the data is something that the sponsors have always wanted, and sports are now getting better at integrating that into their offerings.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I don't feel it's a criticism of the sports industry, because the way I look at it is, for example, we specialise in the football industry, the soccer industry. And, this industry's been around for, 150 years or so. And so they grew up in an environment where all they had to think about was getting those 3 points on a Saturday afternoon. But of course now, fast forward to the 21st century, and it's so much more than that. It's growing the sport, it's entertaining. People, they're so used to being entertained 24/7. They're so used to this, having multiple screens from where to get their information. And I think that's why the sports industry has been a lot slower. We talk about Amazon as being, the best representatives of CRM. They grew up in the technical age, the technology age. Lastminute.com, it was all about technology. And that's why I feel the sports rights holders are only just now waking up to the power of their data and understanding how to use it.
And I think the other thing from a sports point of view, and again, it wasn't a criticism. It's also the fact that the infrastructure is now being put in place for them to be able to get that data. So we're getting season tickets and that are getting smarter, that have more tracking ability in them. But then we're also looking at the stadiums are currently getting more up to speed from an infrastructure point of view, that making it far more valuable from a CRM point of view. I only have my reference point of going to the C conference in 2011, and the big discussion there was, how do we get Wi-Fi solved? How do we solve DAS? How do we make sure more fans can get connected? That was a really big discussion point in 2011, but by 2013 it was seen as it's a necessity. Wi-Fi and those kind of things is a must for stadiums, and we're seeing rollouts, in the now and in the next 18 months, where more stadiums will have capacity for fans. From a CRM and a business intelligence point of view, what do you think the opportunities are for the marketer and the CRM specialists for all that data that's coming in from the stadiums?
Okay, I'll come back to that issue about stadiums in a second, but I just want to go back to something that you started this segment of the conversation with, and that was about technology. I have to say that as a consultancy and agency, we take quite a specific stance on technology. We say CRM is not about technology. Yes, the best technology, the best software can help you be CRM mature more efficiently. It can help you achieve things perhaps at a greater pace. But we don't want sports rights holders to be scared away from implementing CRM because of the fear of technology. Nor do we want sports rights holders to be sold technology by a slick software salesman, because technology is only one element of CRM. And if you're talking about a sports club that's got, a capacity of 10,000 and a membership of 5,000, they don't really want to be invested in technology. They can get away with mining their data in Excel. They can get away with using some simple applications.
Completely agree with that. The technology is really just the tool, and I guess CRM comes across multiple spectrums. There's still a lot of people, even the ones that I've spoken to, that are using high-end CRM, but then are still doing some data dumps and mining that data in tools like Excel. So
Yeah, exactly.
you don't have to be at that super high end solution, and a lot of the pro teams are moving that way. But along all the different scales, there are definitely CRM solutions in that space for different price points along the way.
You're absolutely right. So, our view is the technology has to be driven by your need and your objectives. You can never let your CRM decisions be driven by the technology. It has to be the other way around. Okay, so back to your question about Stadium. So for me, it's all about the customer experience, obviously, and there's massive debates going on about whether stadiums are missing out because the TV broadcast quality is so high that people prefer to stay at home. So the benefit of having Network Stadium and being able to collect, or more importantly, utilise your already collected data in the stadium, is to get messages to people for a start, telling them what's going on, telling them where they need to be, telling them, I don't know, if they're selling out of beer and pies in the concession stands, telling them that there's a special offer on the new home jersey in the souvenir shop, giving them an opportunity to buy a ticket to next week's game because somebody scored a goal and won a high. But it's not just that, it's about the fact that watching a match, watching an event on its own is no longer sufficient for people. They want more entertainment. They want to access the internet and find some statistics relating to what they're watching. They want to place a bet. They want to Snapchat with their friend who's sitting in the stadium on the other side, and that's why the network stadiums are so important. So what you can do with your CRM data is acquire more data during the match that will help feed your insight and build your customers' profiles, but it also allows you to communicate with them in a way that's relevant. I mean, CRM for us is really basic. It's about getting the right message to the right people at the right time. And you can't do that on a match day environment unless you've got a network stadium.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that I definitely saw helping out the SCG in the last Test match, the fact that they've had the new stadium. Sorry, not the new stadium, but they had a new stand at the SCG. The Bradman and Noble stand were added, and those stands were serviced with a new Wi-Fi. So it was the first rollout of I think it's a Cisco implementation to the stadium, and just the fact that they had, I guess, lessened the load on the 3 and the 4G networks, opened up the rest of the stadium to be able to tweet and post and share Instagrams and consume content. So we were able to send them a video, say, "Oh, do you remember this great moment from a previous match?" And they were able to consume it, and you just realise how much the fans love it when. Like I was seeing in the SCG's feed, fans were taking speed tests of the Wi-Fi, snapshotting the photo and sending it out. So it just shows you how much fans love it. And even last night I was at Rod Laver Arena, and my girlfriend was trying to check in, and the 3G and the 4G was getting a bit stressed, and she was getting the shakes because she couldn't check in and say that she was watching Roger Federer. So it's just become it's sort of that necessity now, because you are trying to rival that in-home experience.
So what's the business model down at the SCG? Because for me, this is the thing that's stopping the sports rights holders being more ambitious with their Wi-Fi. It's the fact that they're afraid of the install costs, yet of course we all know that there are providers out there that will do it with no capex, no investment from the rights holders at all, but that's another matter. But people are nervous that then nobody is yet producing their results and showing people how much more merchandise they've sold, or how much more betting, or how much more content was consumed, etc. What was the model at the SCG?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, and I don't have all the numbers, but I'm planning to catch up with the team at SCG in a future podcast. But yeah, there is for 18 months or the last 2 years, there has been a bit of a standoff on the who pays. There's a couple of different ways that it happens. There's the fact that the telcos, it's actually in the best interest for most of the telcos and I've seen this in some of the stadiums in the US, for the telco to implement the Wi-Fi and the data, for instance, that usually would be on your mobile plan. It's actually cheaper for the mobile operators to actually put you through the Wi-Fi, and it's less stress on their network, and it's actually cheaper for the mobile operator. So, that's one that I've seen. I'm not quite sure of the full details of what Cisco have done at the SCG, because they've done deals with a few stadiums here. But it's sort of been rolled into most of the upgrades around stadiums, that it just becomes a must-have thing.
So the leaders over here in Europe, or more importantly in the UK, their model, and there are various agencies doing it in partnership with Cisco actually, is to go to the rights holder and say, okay, it's going to cost X 100,000 or even X million to build a Wi-Fi network dedicated to your match day experience, but you don't have to pay us for that. You've just got to let us sell advertising, commercialise your data, link in the gamblers, the gambling betting companies, etc. And once we've paid off the hardware costs, we do a revenue share. That's the type of model that seems to be prevailing over here. But it's one of those things that they're waiting to see. They're sitting and waiting to see. Glasgow, Celtic up in Glasgow, they've leapt in. They're doing it. And we're all sort of watching with bated breath and waiting to see what happens there. Liverpool have done it in the same way that SCG have. They've got one stand that's Wi-Fi'd up. But of course, they haven't had to enter into any sort of rights barter. They've just paid for the installation because, of course, they can. But yeah, there's a number of different business models floating around. But yeah, it's all about enhancing the game day experience for the fans, but also about acquiring more data to help you leverage better on non-match days.
So the other question I had, one of the big terms, or one of the hot terms, I guess, from the last 18 months has been big data, in the fact that there is so much data out there. How do you sift through all of that data to, as a CRM specialist, to say what's the data we should be focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, when I see people talk about big data in sports, I think, you can talk about big data when it comes to the participation, when it comes to the statistics, the pace of the ball and the player body temperature and the speed, etc. I'm not convinced we have big data when it comes to the marketing and commercial aspects. The data that sports orgs need to be focusing on for CRM commercial purposes, of course, it's contact data. That's your number one aspect. It's demographic data. Behavioural data, both online and offline, socioeconomic data, I guess that falls into demographic, transactional data, lifestyle data. It's stuff that's going to allow you to identify, to put it crudely, what sort of things you can sell to them, what sort of things they're interested in, and also, of course, as we mentioned earlier, what sort of people your sponsors are interested in. And we're just writing a piece at the moment, and we're saying, if you're super dry, I'm sure you're familiar with that clothing brand. If you're super dry, you're not, a men's darts team does not want to be contacting Superdry asking for sponsorship, because the target demographics just don't match each other. So they need to be getting the type of data and using the type of data that will allow them to communicate in a meaningful way, and also go out and find partnerships with broadcasters and corporate sponsors. We take a very simple view. There is so much data out there, as you've already mentioned, and so we use the term single customer view. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. Okay. So our view is the single customer view is not all the data you have about all your customers. It's the data that you need to achieve your CRM objectives. And of course, those objectives will continue to change and grow and move as your business develops, as technology develops.
They'll be different for every team. So there'll be teams that are sold out, that have a waiting list, that have a different objective than a team that's still trying to fill out a new stadium, that just might be starting out and are trying to sell single game tickets. Or there'll be other teams that'll be trying to fill out their season ticket or their membership list, as we would call it in Australia. So it all comes down to what your objectives are.
Yeah, absolutely. So we say, take your single customer view, look at, your very first starting point is what are your objectives, and then you work it back from there. And that's where you end up with your question on data. What data do you need to achieve your objectives? And it will vary, as you said, for every sports organisation, for every different sport, for different size of venues, etc., etc. For example, Man United, they're in this fantastic position where they've got fans all over the world, global fan base. So their needs are to find out about people in Indonesia.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, Portsmouth Town don't need to know what's going on in Indonesia. So, yeah, it's very much based on the individual property and what their objectives are.
I just wanted to finish up with one. There's a little cartoon you've got on your website, which I see it's very similar to the world that we work in the digital and the social space. It's one around the cultural silos in the workspace and how CRM fits. We see the same thing because digital and social sort of touches all departments. CRM's a little bit the same in that it's of use to everybody, but for a little time there, it didn't really have a home. That's obviously changing, that now there are dedicated CRM departments, but it's still something that CRM is sort of the glue of an organisation to a certain degree?
Yeah, we take again. Our view is that CRM needs to be sponsored at the organisational level, so it needs to be bought into and accepted at a senior management level. There's always going to be a specific department that will tend to drive it and lead it, and of course, it's natural that it might be your marketing department, marketing/sales/ comms commercial. But yeah, it's relevant across all departments in a sports organisation. The way we advise our clients to deal with cultural silos is, and this is really, really easy to achieve with CRM as it is with digital media applications, is to find some quick wins. So, for example, if you've got either departments or individuals, and sometimes it can boil down to personalities, if you've got either individuals or departments that are standing there with their arms folded saying, no, we don't buy into this whole CRM thing, get an objective from them and do something short, sharp and snappy that can quickly help them understand how impactful CRM can be. So, for example, if you're thinking about your participation department, say you've got a sports team that is all about growing participation, they want to put on a summer camp. Yep. And they're not getting enough traction, they're not getting enough interest. Go to your participation department and say, okay, let me take your database, let me communicate with them, let me figure out who's relevant to this from a geographic, from a gender, from an age standpoint, and let me tell them all about your participation camp and see what happens. And it's those types of quick wins using some very basic CRM principles that we believe will help break down those cultural silos.
Well, thank you very much for the chat today. Just for the listeners, where can we find you and Winners on the internet?
Our URL is winnersfdd.com. That's Winners FDD for Fiona, Dan, Darren. But as you said, it's at Fiona Green 66 on Twitter, and our LinkedIn group is Sports CRM and Business Intelligence. So if you do a search in LinkedIn, you'll find us there. Some great conversations going on in our LinkedIn group, and we'd love to have more members getting involved.
Well, not a problem. All of those links will be in the show notes for this podcast. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll actually be over in London and Europe for a bit of a tour and a bit of a holiday, but a bit of both. So maybe we'll be able to catch up when I'm there in May.
Great. Look forward to meeting you, Sean. Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Did you know Sports Geek Podcast has listeners in over 35 countries? Thank you for sharing.
Thank you again for Fiona for joining me. Apologies for a little bit of a technical mishap with the audio. It was a little bit scratchy. I tried my best to clean up the audio with Fiona's interview there, but it was really good to have some insight on the sports CRM market in the UK and how especially the football teams are using it. And Fiona's very much in the thick of things, all things football. So we'll probably catch up with her again with her thoughts on sports CRM, and definitely check out their LinkedIn group. There'll be links in the show notes to their LinkedIn group. Really vibrant conversations around all things sports CRM and business intelligence. Another reminder, Sports Business Night, Tuesday the 21st of January at Honey. That'll be sportsgeekhq.com/SB Night. Now, that'd be sounds of the game. That's not applause for me or the podcast. That's actually from the Roger Federer and Friends Night. It was a fun night to see both Roger Federer and Rod Laver on the actual arena that he's named after. Two greats of the game. If you're at a game this weekend, or any weekend for that matter, or during the week, take your phone out, record some of the sounds of the game, and send them to me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. I'd love to include them. This week's social media post of the week comes from the BCS Championship game, and I'm going to give this one to Denny's Diner. Denny's Diner trolled the Auburn fans with a single tweet. If it's any consolation, Auburn fans, there are 47 chances to win on the way home, and they mapped out where every single Denny's was on the way home. Not bad. They got nearly 6,500 retweets for that one. So it just shows you the usefulness of doing a bit of planning. I'm sure they would have had one set up for either team. So congrats to Denny's there. Okay, that's the clock wind up, and that's to tell me to wind up this episode, dedicate it, and get out of the show. This is episode 32 of the podcast, and that means, for me, it only means one thing. I did have a few nominations from a few people tweeting in, a few AFL fans tweeting in: Travis Cloak, Tim Watson, NFL, Bo Jackson, baseball, Sandy Koufax, Jim Brown. But for mine, I can only dedicate this episode to one man, and that would be the Magic Man, Irvin Magic Johnson. You can get the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/32. And that's the signal for the closing 2 cents. Don't forget the network part of social networking. We'll see you at SB Night.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Want to maximize returns from your digital team? Contact Sports Geek about content and commercialization workshop. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.